G'day guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we are here to review round one. Finally, we get to see every single team perform for the first time in the real stuff this year. And what a game we have to take a look at to start off with. The Tigers and the Blues on Thursday night at the MCG. And to a result that I don't think many people would have seen. I don't even think the biggest Tigers fan would have seen this coming. But it was the Tigers who win their first game of the season over the Blues by 13 points. 82 to the Tigers, 69 to the Blues. Now, there was one injury concern from this game, which was Blight. He had some groin tightness early in the third term. He tried to run it out, did a few run-throughs on the bench. However, he was subbed out soon after. So unfortunate for him, he had a really good performance in the first half of the Tigers, but unfortunately he does have some injury concerns going into next week. But let's get to the game itself. Now, to be honest, it wasn't really a spectacle early on. Both teams were very sloppy, but the Blues did prove to be the better team, kicking the first 4 goals of the game and finishing with 5 of the first 6 heading into quarter time. And the Carlton, after they kicked the first 2 goals of the second term, this game had all the hallmarks of an absolute thrashing. However, then the Tigers started to make their way back. They reduced the margin to 25 points at halftime, and in the second half, they were back to their premiership winning selves, in my opinion. Their pressure was elite, they won all the big contests, levelled the scores at 3/4 time, and in the final term, ran the Blues into the ground. From midway through the second term, Richmond kicked 12 of the last 14 goals of the contest to snatch away one of the biggest upsets in AFL history, in my opinion. Great performance from the Tigers. I truly did not see this coming. I thought they would win a couple of games this season. I wasn't someone who was thinking they were going to lose every single game of the season. However, what a performance from them in the first round of the season. You have to give credit where credit's due. The Tigers were absolutely brilliant after the first quarter and a half of this game. And Carlton, I know it's only round one. It's hard to know where teams are going to be, but that is pretty embarrassing, I've got to say, from the Blues. Really terrible performance. They fumbled so many crucial chances in this game. They had a 41-point lead midway through the second term and just stopped at that point. Looked shaky when Richmond started to make their way back, and the Tigers, credit where credit's due, they were brilliant tonight. But let's get to the statistics in this game to look at. The multiple goal kickers for the Tigers was Jack Ross, Sam Lawler, Seth Campbell, and Toby Nankervis, all with 2 goals. Carlton didn't have a multiple goal scorer, so the highest for the Blues was both Brodie Kemp and Matt Cottrell, both with the 1 goal too. On the disposal count, top 5 for the Tigers, Tim Taranto with the 30, Jack Ross with the 28, Jacob Hopper with the 22 along with Thomas Dow, and Nick Vlosten with the 21. And for Carlton, Patrick Cripps with the 32, Taconing with the 28, Chera with the 26, Hewitt with the 25 along with Sam Walsh. Looking at the AFL fantasy points, Toby Nankervis top scored for the Tigers with the 123, Jack Ross with the 114, Thomas Dow with the 95, Taranto with the 89, and Jaden Short with the 85. And for Carlton, top scorer for the whole game, and for Carlton was Tom DeConing with the 132, Cripps with the 102, Hewitt with the 101, Chera with the 97, and then Jack Silvani with the 93. But before we move into the votes for the first game, we have to go to the members' vote from round 0. How the members' vote works for you guys. For the review in 2025, a 3-2-1 voting system is awarded for every single game of the AFL season on the channel. And each round, players who receive 3 votes in the game have a chance to get a bonus vote. I will decide the 4 best players from the round, who will enter a poll exclusive for channel members to vote on, and the winner of that poll will receive the bonus vote for the round, the members' vote. And at the end of the 2025 AFL season, every vote counts. So this is your chance to have your say on the 3rd ever Boundary Riders medalist. So if that appeals to you, or if you just want to show some extra support on the channel, then make sure to click the channel membership link down below and join in the fun. But for now, let's get back into the video. And the members' vote for opening round went to Will Day. Now we get to the votes in this game. 3 votes went to Toby Nankervis, 2 votes went to Tim Taranto, and the 1 vote went to Jack Ross. Toby Nankervis led from the front in this game. Tom DeConing was pretty good for the Blues. He was probably their best, but I felt like Toby Nankervis, with his 2 early goals, kept his team in the contest, and then when they started to make their way back into the game, Nankervis stood up from the front. So brilliant performance from him, deserved the 3 votes. Tim Taranto, he didn't kick the 2 goals, which Jack Ross did get, so he was contending for a 2 votes here, Jack Ross, but I thought that Tim Taranto truly stood up as the veteran midfielder for the Tigers, and I think that he was their best midfielder on the ground, so that's why me and my brother both picked him. And Jack Ross, brilliant performance from him. Looks like he's in for a standout year for the Tigers, and if he can perform like that most weeks, he'll be up there in the best and fairest for the Tigers. But truly a great performance from Richmond. Carlton have a lot of work to do going against Hawthorn next week. So now we move to Friday night, Hawthorn up against the Bombers, and Hawthorn broke away early and kept Essendon at bay throughout the night, in the end winning by 26 points. 111 Hawthorn, 85 Essendon. Now there were a few injury concerns from this game. First of all, it was Jack Scrimshaw, had some friendly fire with Josh Battle in the second term and didn't return to the field. So unfortunate for Jack Scrimshaw, but before that, he was involved in an incident with Jordan Ridley when he stuck out an arm running towards him and put Jordan Ridley to the ground, gave him concussion. So I think Scrimshaw may be out for a few extra weeks, depending on how long he gets from the match review panel. And Kyle Langford later in the game pulled up short with a hamstring injury, but at this stage Langford will probably be missing the next couple of weeks, which is really unfortunate for Essendon. But getting to the game itself, it was a really tight first 10 minutes of the contest, with both teams really struggling to score, until we saw a brilliant goal from Isaac Kako, soccering it off the ground. It was absolutely brilliant to see from the kid. However, this really sprung the Hawks to life. They piled on 6 quick goals in a row to lead by 27 points at quarter time. Now, in a topsy-turvy second term, the Hawks threatened to break away early, but Essendon kicked 3 goals in a row to reduce the margin and added to 20 points. But Hawthorn finished the second term strong and led by 29 points at half-time, and the story continued in the second half. The Bombers threatened to come back into this contest, but the Hawks really kept them at bay, kicking goals when they needed it most and when they saw Essendon trying to make their way back into the contest. And unfortunately for the Bombers, those 6 quick goals late in the first quarter were really the difference in the game, and in the end, the Hawks ran out winners by 26 points. So Hawthorn, I think it's a little bit early to call them the real deal, but at the moment, they're 2 wins on top of the ladder with so many other teams left to play. Dude, just get rid of opening round. It's so ridiculous. But anyway, they look good, Hawthorn. They didn't really play their best tonight, but to show that they can not play their best and still win games is a really good sign of a great team. So a good win from them. And Essendon, I've still got a lot of concerns about their forward line. They did have a lot of scoring shots tonight, but the fact that they still have to rely on Isaac Kako and Caddy for goals, considering now that Langford's going to be out for a few weeks with a hamstring, I think there's a lot of struggles ahead for Essendon. But let's move to the multiple goal kickers for this game. Hawthorn had a few. They had Dylan Moore and Nick Watson with the 3, Chol, Ginnivan and Blake Hardwick with the 2. And for Essendon, we had multiple goal kickers for Langford, Dersma and Merritt, all with 2 as well. On the disposal counts, Carl Amon led for Hawthorn with the 28, Newcombe with the 25, Sicily with the 24, McDonald with the 23 and Nash with the 22. And on Essendon's point of view, top disposal getter on the game was Jai Caldwell with the 36, McGrath with the 27, Merritt with the 26, Martin with the 24, and Dylan Shield with the 23. And finally, on the AFL fantasy point of view, top scorer in the end for Hawthorn was Carl Amon with the 111, Nash with the 102, Moore with the 97, McDonald with the 94, and Newcombe with the 88. And on Essendon, we had Jai Caldwell with a massive 146, Nick Martin with the 106, Dersma with the 103, McGrath with the 102, and Merritt with the 96. But let's get to the votes for this game. 3 votes went to Dylan Moore, 2 votes went to Jai Caldwell, and the 1 vote went to Carl Amon. Brilliant performance by Dylan Moore in the end. 3 goals, 21 disposals, and it really showed last week. Hawthorn small forwards really struggled to kick goals, but tonight they were brilliant. Him, Ginnivan, Watson, and co. It was just a brilliant performance by their smalls, led by Dylan Moore. He deserved the 3 votes. Jai Caldwell really stood up for Essendon. He was their best player by far. A lot of disposals, but the 11 tackles really stood out to me in the midfield. So good job from him. And Carl Amon had a really good couple of games to start the year, playing off that half-back role for the Hawks. It's really good to see. 28 touches from him, and I mean, he's joined a very successful club already. I mean, a lot of people would have said that he joined for the money at Hawthorn, leaving Port Adelaide, but he's done really well there at the Hawks, and now he's just reaping the rewards of that. So a good performance from him. So to the first game on Saturday, it was the Cats up against Fremantle, and despite Fremantle fighting back in the third term, it was Geelong who ran out really comfortable winners in the end by 78 points. 147 to Geelong, Fremantle 69. Now, there was one injury concern from this game. It was a groin injury to Sam Switkowski in the third quarter. He was subbed out pretty soon after that point, and he's been ravaged by injury already this season. Already had a concussion in one of the practice matches, so really unfortunate for him. But Fremantle, really poor performance from them. Let's get to the game. So Geelong were a lot tougher at the contest throughout the first quarter and really dominated the territory battle. Freo simply weren't good enough, and in the end, Geelong could have led by a lot more. However, they still led by 27 points at quarter time. And Geelong's pressure lifted even more in the second term, and it seemed like they wanted to put this game to bed before half-time with the hot conditions. The Cats kicked 7 straight goals to lead by 54 points at the main break. However, Fremantle did start to show some fight, and we have to mention the quarter of top drafty and Murphy Reid in the third term. He had 9 touches, 3 marks, 4 goals. Brilliant from Murphy Reid. Those 4 goals came in about the space of 10 minutes, so he was absolutely brilliant, really did well. But unfortunately, that was really all the highlights that Fremantle had throughout the afternoon. The Cats were able to pile on 10 goals in the final term and run out winners by 78 points. So Fremantle did have a couple of players out, that is understandable, but to lose by 78 points in the first game game of the season when there's so many high expectations on you. It's not a very good performance from them at all. But let's get to the multiple goal kickers in this game. For Geelong, Jeremy Cameron top score with the 4 goals. Ollie Henry with the 3 along with Tyson Stengel. Dangerfield, Dempsey and Holmes all got 2. And for Fremantle, Murphy Reid with the 4 goals, of course, and Frederick with the 2. On the disposal counts, top for Geelong was Bailey Smith with the 32, Sam De Koning with the 25, Henry with the 24 along with Max Holmes, and Humphreys with the 23. Fremantle, O'Meara top disposal getter on the ground with the 31, Sarong with the 27 along with Johnson, Brayshaw with the 26 and O'Driscoll with the 25. On the AFL fantasy point of view, Bailey Smith top score with the 126, De Koning with the 124, Henry with the 117, Holmes with the 106 and Nevitt with the 103. And for Fremantle, O'Meara with the 99, Brayshaw with the 95, Jackson with the 93, Johnson with the 89 and Sarong with the 85. But now let's get to the votes in this game. 3 votes went to Bailey Smith, 2 votes went to Sam De Koning, and the 1 vote went to Lawson Humphreys. What a performance from Bailey Smith in his first outing in the hoops. He did absolutely brilliantly, showed why they did so much to get him over in the off-season. 32 disposals, 5 tackles, and a goal. But in the end, only just beat out Sam De Koning. What a performance from him. I think he's definitely taken that mantra now as the number 1 ruck for the Cats going into this season. He was brilliant. 25 touches from him, 18 hit-outs, 4 tackles, and a goal. I think he's definitely locked that spot down. So great performance from them too. And the Cats, I did pick them to be the premiers at the start of the year. They definitely haven't wavered me on that point. Great performance from them. Fremantle, a lot of question marks. After that, we get to the grand final rematch, and it was a lot more of a spectacle than the grand final was. But the Lions were able to hold out the Swans in the end by 4 points. Sydney 82, Brisbane 86. There were a couple of injury concerns from this game as well. Kyle Lohmann injured his ankle in the first quarter, and he was rubbed out just before quarter time. He was seen in a moon boot, so I don't know how long he'll be out for, but that's really concerning for the Lions. And then Brendan Starskovic, he received a head knock late in the game. And with this being his 3rd in the space of 12 matches, I doubt he'll be playing in the next couple of weeks. I think they'll give him a bit of time off. So it's really unfortunate there for the Lions. But getting to the game itself, the Swans started really well and the Lions were incredibly sloppy. Sydney kicked the first 4 goals of the game before we saw a late goal from the Lions to saw them reduce the margin to 15 points at quarter time. Now, the Lions started to work their way into the contest in the second term, but missed their chances and could have been a lot closer at half time, but were still down by 13 points at the main break. And in the second half, Brisbane started to look a lot more cleaner with the footy, which then translated onto the scoreboard. Sydney's mistakes were compounded when the Lions took them on turnover, turning a 13-point deficit at half time into a 10-point lead at the last change. And Sydney put the heat on early in the final term, but couldn't break in front, and in the end, the Brisbane were just simply too good. They held on in the final moments and won by 4 points. So Brisbane, after a pretty hard couple of weeks, of course, with the cyclone, having their game postponed, then having to move their training sessions to Sydney. This is a gallant performance from them. Really good performance, really galvanising display from the Lions. Sydney, it is 0-2. They've played against arguably some of the better teams going into this season, but simply the fact that they haven't won a game already. I think there's a lot of question marks about his moves so far. I think Sam Wicks has worked. Tom McCartan, I think he had a better game today, but I don't think that's going to be a move going forward. I think he's Sydney's best defender, and the fact that he's playing forward now, I think they need to find something else about it. We'll have to wait and see what they do in the next couple of weeks. But Sydney, really disappointing, and they've got a couple of tough games coming up as well. Moving to the goals in this game, though, top scorer for Sydney was Corey Warner with the 2, along with Braden Campbell, Chad Warner, and Isaac Heaney. And for Brisbane, Zach Bailey with the 4 goals and Zorko with the 2. On the disposals for Sydney, we had 23 to Heaney, McInerney, and Blakey, Rampy with the 21, and Chad Warner with the 20. Brisbane, we had Berry and Dunkley with the 27, Wilmot with the 25, along with Levi Ashcroft and Zorko with the 24. On the AFL fantasy point of view, we had Heaney with the 103, Grundy with the 95, Blakey with the 83, and then Campbell and Roberts with the 81. And for Brisbane, top scorer in the game in the end was Josh Dunkley with the 130, Zorko 112, Berry 104, Wilmot 91, and then McInerney 85. But let's get to the votes in this game. 3 votes went to Dane Zorko, 2 votes went to Josh Dunkley, and the 1 vote went to Isaac Heaney. Zach Bailey was very close to getting a vote here, but I think Isaac Heaney for the Swans, I think he was the real reason why the Swans stayed in this game, so hence why he got the 1 vote. Zorko and Dunkley were fighting out for this 3 votes, but I think Zorko, off of halfback with the 2 goals, kicked them in the clutch moments as well, hence why he got the 3 votes. But Josh Dunkley, definitely a great performance from him as well. After that, we get to Collingwood versus Port Adelaide at the MCG, and what an absolute bloodbath. In the second half, Collingwood piled on the paint. They kicked 12 goals to 2, smashed Port Adelaide in the end, and ran out winners by 91 points. 136 Collingwood, 45 Port Adelaide. Now, even though Port Adelaide kicked the first goal of this game, Collingwood were ready to respond after a very dismal opening round performance. The Pies dominated the territory battle in the first term and honestly should have been further in front, but at quarter time still led by 21 points. Collingwood increased their pressure around the footy in the second term, and it felt like their extra run last week was working wonders. Port Adelaide looked sluggish and were not accustomed to the conditions. Between the midway point of the second term to the latter parts of the third quarter, the Pies piled on 10 goals in a row and the game was done. With the Power finishing with just 2 goals in the second half, they were pretty well embarrassed at the MCG and were on the back end of a 91-point thrashing. So a great response from Collingwood. They needed to make that response after a dismal performance against GWS, so that's good to see from them. They get back on the winners list and they look a lot better for it. Port Adelaide, it is their first game of the year. It's a little bit early to say that things are all done, but I think one thing's for sure, the Dan Houston trade was an absolute mess for Port. Moving to the goals in this game, top scorer with Tim Memory with the 4, McStay with the 3, along with Myercheck, 2 to Elliott, Hill and Maynard. And for Port Adelaide, no multiple goal kickers, just the highest here with Darcy Byrne-Jones, Travis Boak and Rioli, all with the 1 goal, 1. On the disposal, side bottom, top for the table for the Pies with the 31, Houston with the 27, 26 to Crisp, Nick Dacos and Josh Dacos. For Port Adelaide, top of the table was Rosie with the 35, Wines with the 34, Boak with the 28, Horn Francis with the 25 and Farrell with the 23. And on the AFL fantasy point of view, for the Pies, McStay top scored with the 124, side bottom with the 106 along with Tim Membry, Chris with the 101 and 99 to Dacos. Port Adelaide's top was Travis Boak with the 115, Rosie with the 112, Sweet and Wines with the 97 and Farrell with the 88. But let's get to the votes in this game. 3 votes went to Dan Houston, 2 votes went to Daniel McStay, and the 1 vote went to Steele Sidebottom. Dan Houston proving every reason why Port Adelaide should have been asking for way more in that trade. He was absolutely brilliant. Collingwood looked like a completely different team with him in the lineup. Bursting off of halfback. Collingwood, he may be the missing piece. We'll have to wait and see, but a great performance from Dan Houston. McStay with the 3 goals, playing as a second ruck, 21 touches. I don't know if he's had many more games like that, over 20 touches, but a brilliant performance from him. And Steele Sidebottom just keeps on chugging on. One of the best players in their history, Steele Sidebottom. And then to the final game on Saturday, it was the Bulldogs up against North Melbourne. And despite North Melbourne being pretty gallant in this game, it was the Dogs who held on and won by 16 points in the end. 113 to the Dogs, 97 to the Roos. Now, there were 2 injury concerns from this game. James O'Connell was the first one. He was forced off with a jaw issue in the third term after a collision with Paul Curtis, and unfortunately he did not return. And then the real massive injury to Cleary. He got knocked out when colliding with Jackson Archer running at him from the other direction. It was really, really ominous signs early. However, it does seem that he's in good spirits now, Cleary. He will miss next week, probably maybe a week after as well with concussion, but that could have been a lot worse, so thank God he's okay. But by moving to the game itself, despite the Dogs kicking the first few goals of the game, North Melbourne were brilliant with the pressure around the footy. However, the Dogs did finish with the last 3 goals of the opening term and pushed the lead out to 23 points at the first break. And when they finished with their 4th goal early in the second term, signs were a little bit ominous. However, the Kangas lifted and started to win with the pressure game and piled 4 goals on in response, and to be within a goal. But the Dogs steadied and at half-time led by 10 points. The tough contest continued into the second half. Both teams were trading goals and North Melbourne were relentless with their pressure. But credit to the Dogs, they did stand up to it and never let the Roos in front. At 3/4 time, they led by 7 points, and the Dogs started brilliantly in the final quarter. They kicked the first 3 goals, which really grinded down North Melbourne. And when they did have opportunities, the Roos, they just were poor with efficiency, and that was really their downfall in the end. The Dogs were more effective going forward, and in the end, round out winners by 16 points. This is a really big win for the Dogs, I think. A lot of people, I think, are giving them less credit. They had so many of their best players out, and the other ones really stood up, and I think that shows the depth that the Dogs do have. It does show that when they do bring these big players back, like the Bontempellis and Treloars, that if these smaller players can stand up, they can actually do something this year, the Western Bulldogs, but the question is, can they? That's really what we have to wait and see. North Melbourne, they were really good today, but again, it's another loss, and I think most North Melbourne fans are pretty tired of hearing, oh, another great loss for us, another great loss. I think they want to see wins on the board, and that's a hurdle they have to get over this year, the Kangas. But moving to the multiple goal kickers in this game. For North Melbourne, Nick Larkey-Sarg with the 5 goals, Curtis with the 3, and Davies Uniacke with the 2. Bulldogs, top of the table was Norton and Vandermeer both with the 3, Dale, Sanders, and McNeil with the 2. On the disposal, Sheezel with the 31, Simpkin with the 30, Power with the 27, 27. Daniel with the 24 and Parker with the 21. And for the Dogs, Ed Richards brilliant with the 30. Dale with the 29. Fraser with the 28 along with Liberatore, and 23 to Kennedy. And then on the AFL fantasy front, Cherry with the 133. Simpkin with the 125. Power with the 121. Sheasel with the 114. And Zerha with the 102. And then for the Dogs, Liberatore 108. Dale with the 104. Fraser with the 99. Richards with the 95. And then Kennedy with the 92. But let's get to the votes. 3 votes went to Ed Richards, 2 votes went to Bailey Dale, and the 1 vote went to Matt Kennedy. Ed Richards, he showed signs last year that he was going to evolve into more of a midfielder for the Western Bulldogs, and he was absolutely brilliant today. 30 touches, a goal as well. If he can get 30 touches a game, I don't think they'll lose many games of football, the Dogs. He was brilliant today. Bailey Dale, really good as well. 2 goals off of halfback, was really effective for the Dogs, and considering there was an injury cloud over him, he did really well. And Matt Kennedy, 4 goal assists from him as well. Really good recruit for the Dogs. Real puzzle piece that I think the Dogs were missing, especially with losing a couple of their midfielders over the last couple of off seasons. Up next, we have the first game on Sunday. It was the Crows against St Kilda, and it was the Crows in the end who won very comfortably by 63 points. 135 Adelaide, 72 to the Saints. Now, the Crows were brilliant early on. They dominated the field position and kicked the first 5 goals of the contest. St Kilda did stop the bleeding a little bit later, but the Crows still led by 30 points at quarter time. Now, the Saints started okay and limited the Crows moving forward at the start of the second term. However, Adelaide still kept the Saints at bay, scored 3 of the last 4 goals of the second term, and led by 37 points at the main break. Now, St Kilda actually brought a lot of pressure in the early stages of the third term, and when they kicked the first goal, it did feel like something was maybe brewing, but this just pushed the Crows into action. Adelaide kicked 7 goals in a row to put the game to bed. The final quarter was pretty uneventful, and Adelaide in the end, like I said, won out by 63 points. So this is a good win from the Crows. I'm not going to say it's a great win. I think the Saints are very underdone. I think they're going to have a very tough start to this season with so many injuries. But the Crows did what they had to do. They got a good win against the team and they cashed out on it. They got a 63-point win. That's a great start to their season. And hopefully this gives them confidence going forward. But St Kilda, they're right behind the 8 ball right now. They could be facing a couple of big smashings in the next couple of weeks. I really don't know where they're going to find their goals. Their forward line is not what they were expecting at the preseason. And I don't really have many high hopes for St Kilda going into the first couple of months of the year. But moving to the multiple goal kickers for the Crows, Darcy Fogarty top scorer with the 4 straight, Phil Thorpe with the 3, Dawson, Rochelle, Rankin and Cumming with the 2. And for the Saints, Higgins, Max Hall and Wood all got 2 as well. On the disposals, Matt Crouch, as you would expect, top disposal getter with the 31, Saligo with the 29 along with Rory Laird, Rankin with the 28 and Dawson with the 27. For St Kilda, new recruit McRae with the 34, Wanganeen Miller with the 27, Wilson with the 23, Sinclair with the 22 and Wilkie with the 19. And then on the AFL fantasy front, Dawson top scored in the game with the 126, Saligo with the 125, Rankin 107 along with Rory Laird, and Riley O'Brien with the 98. And on St Kilda, Wanganeen Miller with the 113, McRae with the 109, Wilson with the 97, Sinclair with the 90, and Wilkie with the 87. But let's get to the votes in this game. 3 votes went to Jordan Dawson, 2 votes went to Isaac Rankin, and the 1 vote went to Jake Saligo. Honestly, Crows could have raffled like 5 or 6 players through this list. It was a very even performance from the Crows, but the reason why I picked Jordan Dawson is because I think he set the tone early and in the second half. Even when Windhager went to him as a tag, I still thought Dawson was very influential, so that's why I gave him the 3 votes. Isaac Rankin was close to getting 3 votes here. I just thought in the final term, I think he tapered off a little bit, but I still think he had a wonderful performance, and I love his new role playing a lot more midfield. Jake Saligo, we also remember a breakout year in 2024, but I think he's going to a whole nother level in 2025. Could honestly be an All-Australian smoky. Great performance from him as well. Next, we get to Melbourne v the Giants, and what a performance this was. Even though it was only round 1, it felt like a finals sort of game. At the MCG, Melbourne looked like they're back, but unfortunately couldn't record a win. The Giants stole it in the end, won by 3 points. Melbourne 74, Giants 77. Unfortunately, there was one thing that did take away from this game for GWS, which was the injury to Brent Daniels. He hurt his hip late in the second term, and he did try to come back on, go for a bit of a run. However, all the signs pointed to the fact that he was just sitting out there for numbers, and unfortunately, he was subbed out pretty soon into the third term. Luckily, the Giants do have the bye next week, but we'll just have to wait and see how long Brent Daniels is out for. So let's get to the game. The Demons started strong all over the ground at stoppage and had the advantage in the territory battle. However, it was GWS who took the chances and put it on the scoreboard in the first quarter, and even though the Demons kicked the last goal of the first term, the margin was reduced to only 5 points. Now, the second term, the Demons started the better of the two teams in a very tough contest. They kicked 3 goals in a row to take the lead from the Giants, but again, they would respond. They kicked 3 goals late in the quarter, and at halftime, GWS led by 7 points. But of course, in a game of momentum like this, the Demons swung back. Melbourne kicked 3 goals in the first 2 minutes of the quarter to regain the lead, and the Giants were well beaten throughout most parts of the third term, but still stayed in touch, and Melbourne held an 11-point lead going into the last change. And what an intense final quarter we actually saw. Both teams struggled to get space, and both teams had issues at times to capitalise on their big moments. Melbourne had a few opportunities to win the game with a few set shots, but an unlikely hero from the Giants in Lachie Keefe, who was smashed all day by Max Gawn, converted a set shot with a minute to go in this game, and they held on by 3 points. So the Giants, this is a real sign of a great team. The fact that they got well beaten today, I think Melbourne were the way better team. The fact that they just stayed with them in the second half and then jumped them in the final moments shows signs that this team could be something. They are my early contender. On Melbourne, they have lost no fans today. They look like a team from a couple of years ago. 2024's Melbourne is not there. They did everything they could today, and it was just unlucky in the final moments that the Giants found Lachie Keefe out the back who kicked the goal. So great performance from both teams, but the Giants get the chocolates in the end. Moving to the multiple goal kickers in this game, Christian Petrarca and Jefferson both with the 2 for the Demons. For GWS, Toby Green with the 3, along with Steve Cornelio, and the 2 to Cadman. On the disposals, Christian Salem top for Melbourne with the 30, Petrarca with the 27 along with Jack Viney, 25 to Oliver and 24 to Max Gawn. And for the Giants, Tom Green with the 35, Whitfield with the 34, Callahan with the 31, Kelly with the 23, and Toby Green with the 23 as well. And finally, AFL Fantasy, Max Gawn with the 127 top scorer for the game, Christian Salem with the 124, Sparrow 96, Petrarca 95, and Xavier Lindsay with the 94. And for the Giants, Toby Green with the 112, Whitfield with the 111, Tom Green with the 100, Josh Kelly with the 98, and Harry Himmelberg with the 96. But now let's get to the votes. 3 votes went to Max Gawn, 2 votes went to Toby Green, and 1 vote went to Tom Green. Now, this was really, really tough. I thought for the fact that the Toby Green in the last quarter almost dragged him over the line, he was very, very close to getting the 3 votes. And Max Gawn as well, the fact that his opponent was the one who kicked the winning goal, almost dropped him down to 2. The reason why I picked Max Gawn for the 3 votes is because I think he was dominant today. He made their midfielders look good, as he always does. He always makes their midfielders from an A grade to an A+ grade midfield. He was insane today, Max Gawn, and he did everything to get his team over the line. Unfortunately, the Giants were just better in the final moments. Toby Green was insanely good. 23 touches, 3 goals, 4 tackles, chucked in the midfield in the last quarter, had 11 touches in this game. So that's another reason as well. He only had 12 touches to 3/4 time, and he absolutely blitzed them in the final term. Got his team over the line as well. So it's both the captains did brilliantly. And Tom Green on return, a bit of a surprise return. I thought he was going to be out for a few more weeks, but really well today. He worked into the game, but in that second half, Tom Green was really instrumental for the Giants in the guts. And to our final game of the round, it was the West Coast Eagles up against the Gold Coast Suns, and what an absolute thrashing the Suns handed out in their first game. A whopping 87-point win away from home. 136 to the Gold Coast, 49 to the West Coast Eagles. Now, there were a couple of injury concerns from this game. Charlie Ballard seemed to have done a knee injury. Now, it's unknown the severity at this stage, but some suspicions suspect that this is an ACL, and this would be absolutely devastating news for the Suns because it was such a great performance from them, and Charlie Ballard is a real pillar down there in the defensive half, so hopefully it's not too serious, but there are some concerns there. And then for the West Coast Eagles, Jake Waterman finished the game on the bench, subbed out after a calf injury, so I'd be expecting that he's going to be missing the next few weeks. Now, the Suns did kick the first goal of this game, but the Eagles were able to take their chances throughout the majority of the first quarter to take the lead. However, the Gold Coast did dominate the territory battle throughout the majority of the term, but unfortunately they did struggle to convert. They still led by 16 points at quarter time, but it could have been a lot more. However, that did soon change. The Suns smashed the Eagles in the second term. They kicked 5 goals to none, and at halftime they led by 45 points, and at that point the game felt like it was done. It was a bit more of a contest in the third quarter. The Eagles were able to respond to the Suns throughout the majority of the term, but the Gold Coast still won it, and at the 3/4 time the Gold Coast led by 60 points. And in the final term it was much of the same. The Gold Coast just continued to dominate from the middle of the ground, dominated the territory battle. It felt like they were scoring every single time they were going inside the forward 50, and in the end the Gold Coast won by... So it is very early on in the season. This is the first game for the Gold Coast against a much lesser West Coast Eagles, but they were very good signs for the Suns. They look dominant in the middle of the ground. Their forward line looks good, especially Ben King, and their defense looks very solid. Now, the West Coast Eagles, that's a very poor performance at home. I actually tipped them to win this game. I definitely thought they were going to give up a better performance than that, and pretty tough start for Andrew McWalter in his first game at the West Coast Eagles. But now let's get to the multiple goal kickers in this game. For the Eagles, it was Waterman and Allen both with the 2. For the Suns, there was a lot. We had Ben King with the 6, Ben Long with the 4, Rogers with the 3, and Reid, Miller and Rioli with the 2. On the disposal front, for the Eagles, Graham top of the table with the 23, Baker with the 21, Duggan with the 20, McGovern with the 19, and Cole with the 19 as well. Gold Coast, Anderson with the 36, Rao with the 30, Miller with the 26, Rioli and Weller with the 21. On the AFL fantasy front, for the Eagles, Graham with the 97, Cole with the 89, Flynn with the 73, and then 71 to both Hutchinson and Duggan. And then for the Gold Coast, Jared Witts with the 125, Anderson with the 117, Rao with the 108, Miller with the 95, and then Ben King with the 92. But let's get to the votes in this game. 3 votes went to Ben King, 2 votes went to Jared Witts, and the 1 vote went to Noah Anderson. Now, I think it's pretty self-explanatory why Ben King got the 3 votes, 6 goals. I don't think it's very common these days, so a very good performance from the key forward. Great start to his year. Jared Witts absolutely dominated in the ruck. 68 hit-outs, domination throughout the whole afternoon, and put Matt Flynn to the sword in the end. Only let him have 13 hit-outs, so just domination from him. And he's one of the really underrated ruckmen in the game. And Noah Anderson, he was fighting for that 1 vote with his ex-captain in Touk Miller and Matt Rao, but I thought I'd give it to Anderson. Brilliant performance in his first game as captain for the club. And now, guys, let's get to the ladder at the conclusion of round 1. So a couple of teams have played 2 games, which makes it look a little bit uneven. But anyway, the Giants and the Hawks are in the top 2 spots. The Gold Coast, after a massive win against the Eagles, are in 3rd. Geelong, Adelaide, Collingwood, Richmond, and the Bulldogs round out the top 8. The Brisbane Lions just outside of the 8 at the moment. Melbourne are in 10th. Sydney are in 11th, North Melbourne are in 12th, then we've got Carlton, Essendon, St Kilda, Fremantle, Port Adelaide, and then West Coast right down the bottom of the ladder. But guys, that is the end of the review for round 1. Thank you for listening, thank you for watching. If you did enjoy it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe over on YouTube. And if you are over on Spotify, make sure to leave us 5 stars and make sure to follow us. You're notified on the podcast and the review every single week. But again, guys, thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and we'll catch us all next week.